Okay, let's hear. Hopefully we'll go soon.
Things first on the realest. Just to let the whole world feel it. And I'm still in the murder business. I can hold you down like I'm giving lessons in physics. Right. Want a bad bitch like this? Drop it low, pick it up just like this. Cup of ace, cup of deuce, cup of Chris. I heal something worth a half a ticket on my wrist. Taking all the liquor straight, you chase that. Now from the top, like we're bringing it in back. When the hood see when the beat say, champagne spilling, you should taste that.
Hello, Andrea. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm glad you came on. We were able to sort out your problem.
Yes, thank you.
Right, we'll just wait for the rest to come on board. Hopefully we had 6 last week, so hopefully we'll have about the same numbers. Okay.
Cool. Yep.
Have you been able to sort out your group task or group assignment task with your other members?
So I know that Taylor gets back this afternoon. So I've kind of done my part of the assignment and just sent it off to her and to Zach. But I've struggled getting on to Zach because he said he's been away with a death in the family.
Yeah, I got an email with him, yeah.
Yeah, so I sent him a few emails and then he replied the other day saying that he'd been away with that, but he was ready to work and everything. So I just sent him what I've done and then said that there's this much to do left. If you guys can like divide that somehow, and now I'll start working on the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So yeah, I've struggled to get onto him, but hopefully he is all right now and can get onto that soon.
Okay, well, the one advantage we got of the group task is that we can issue individual marks, so it's not a group mark. So if you have someone in your group who actually doesn't do anything, they're not going to receive a mark, and we'll take that into account when we assign your marks.
Right, so do I have to tell you which part I've done, or do I just hand in the part that I've written, or...
Have you been able to work out how to get your video of your presentation or your oral presentation done?
Well, my dad kind of just showed me the webcam on this, so I think I can just video it on there, me talking, and then I can hand that in.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's all you'll do is, and we'll base that on your presentation from what your video is of it. So that should tell us exactly who's done what in the group assignment. Okay.
Oh, all right, sweet. Thank you.
Emmanuel, you've joined us.
Hello there, how are you?
Have you said hello to Andrea?
Hello, Andrea, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
You guys see each other?
Yeah.
I can see you, yeah.
But can you see Andrea as well?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see both of you.
All right, good. This is all new technology. I'm used to just doing it face to face, so
Well,
seeing
this
how
is
this is going.
definitely new technology for me, anyway.
You don't laugh at us old people, Andrea. We did invent this stuff. Okay? Just remember, it's old people who taught you to use a spoon. I saw that on Facebook today, so I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, well, we've got 2 people up so far, so that's about where we were last week. I've had a contact from a few other people, so hopefully more and more will come on. Andrea, were you able to view the recordings of last week's Teuton lectures that are up on StudySmart?
Yes.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure people have been able to access that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was... Oh no, I had a bit of an issue with my theory and application subject because the lecture that was put onto that subject overview for that week I don't think it was the right one because there was another one put up on the side which wasn't included in the subject overview, and that was what the work was based on. So I figured it out for myself, but yeah, it was a bit confusing. But okay. Yeah, I have the work for this subject.
And Emmanuel, how are you going with your group assignment and getting together with your respective partners?
Okay, Trevor, I've done my PowerPoint presentation. I've done the summary and gone through the text that you gave us specifically. I got in contact with Tan, and we're actually meeting tonight to go through the video side of it. Because I wasn't sure. I was going to ask you a few questions, but we couldn't get hold of Sean. We've tried a number of times to get in contact with Sean, just cannot get in contact with him.
Okay.
Now, with what I wanted to ask you about the task 1, you do a PowerPoint presentation, right, with slides and so forth, ready for a presentation.
Yes.
Pardon for my ignorance, but how do you do the videoing? Do I have my presentation
Look, the easiest way is, I'm not overly concerned about seeing the PowerPoint as you do the presentation. This is basically to allow people to develop the skill to get up and talk in front of people.
Sure, okay. Yep,
and so we're more interested. So if you're videoing your presentation, if you have the slides on your computer in front of you and all I see is the video of yourself doing the presentation, that's all I'm really interested in.
So it can be a video of me with my PowerPoint with someone else videotaping both of my PowerPoint in front of me. You're happy with that?
Hello, Rachel.
Hello.
Oh, we got someone else on. Yeah, look at this, all these new people coming on board. How's everything going, Rachel?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay. Well, might as well carry on with the same topic. How are you going with this group tasking and getting in contact with everyone?
Yeah, I'm good. Except I haven't got in contact with one girl, so still trying to talk to her, I think. But
that does appear to be a familiar theme across the online group. And as I've said to the other guys, it's not a case of the mark is assigned to a group. Individuals will be assigned their own mark based on the work they do and their presentation.
When you say the work they do, for instance, if I've done my PowerPoint presentation, how do you know that that's my PowerPoint presentation when we have one video? Are we just submitting one video per group? I guess that's the question.
You will be, or if you're unable to gel the group, because if there's some people, this is where it starts getting complicated and everyone's ability to use the various software packages. If you require it, then there's no reason why you can't put up 3 separate videos of each member of your group with their specific section that they're covering. If you're able to blend it, or as you said, meet up earlier, or meet up with people.
So you're happy if we send our own individual bit as well. Now, when you said 3 sections, you're talking intro, body, and conclusion. Is that correct? So someone talks about the introduction, someone puts a body content, and one puts a conclusion.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. So we set it up that way because there's, in general, 3 people. So each people. That's great English, as you can see. I'm good at English and counting. It's 3 peoples. Okay. All right, looks like it's just the 3 of you today. We've been going for a few minutes. All right, I'm going to try this share screen thing. We had some fun with it last week, whereas everyone could see everything but me. So what we're looking at is, and it's pretty much this week is in line with what your group task is. Last week, for those who weren't able to attend, was pretty much just going over the topic, unit outline, and setting you up for this task. So what we're looking at today is a bit more directly related to the role of sports management. And so I'm going to try sharing. Let's see how we go here with this. No, I can't find it. Oh, that'll be right. Hang on for a moment. I'll find this. Okay, here we go. So has that come up on your screen yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got the business definition in front of you? Yes?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay, great. Look, and as it is, we know a business is primarily involved in the trade, whether it be goods, services, both. And in some contexts, that's what sports management is, or sports business. The difference is that the goods and services that they're generally providing is either watching a game of football, watching a sport, or access to sporting facilities. They're privately owned in businesses, but they can also be publicly owned. But predominantly in business it's about making money. In other words, they need to increase their sales, increase their profits. And the true thing with the business is trying to get as much of the market share as they possibly can. However, when we look at it from a sports business, we're not necessarily looking at it as how much money they make. Most of them do wish to make money. I think the rugby leagues just signed their $900 million broadcasting right. So that's good example of where the money comes from. But other such sports, it's more about delivering the sport. And with the sporting teams in particular, for them, they won't judge it on the success, on how much money they make, but more based upon the success in their sports. And that's where the two sort of will diverge or go their separate ways. Business, it's all about making money, the profit margin, the bottom line, whereas sport, to them, it's how many trophies they get each season or over a period of time. Now, it's to do with planning, organising and directing, controlling and budgeting, leading and evaluating. Within their specific sport, sports will not generally demarcate into different areas. They will just purely focus on one sport. The prime example is the NRL or the AFL, and they look at the development of the sport of rugby league or Aussie rules throughout the country and in some internationally. Now, a lot of the components that they do apply to that, the strategies, are similar to the techniques in that we use in general business. But it has a different approach to it, and we have to be aware of what makes sport different to business. And this is what the unique features of sport, which Task 1's all about. Now, when we look at sport, have you come up to the next screen yet?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Mine hasn't. Great. We've got to look at the special needs of sport and the features, and some of those is what you're all talking about. And it's about the delivering of a defined period of time. It's delivery of a sporting good. Whereas some markets you can extend the product. With sport you can't. You've got a limited product distribution, which is simply how many games they play in the year. If they've got 22 games, you have 22 games to generate finance for your sport. You can't extend it by playing, we'll just add another 10 games. So you've got that definite period without an extension on it. In some cases, some sports are 12 months or yearly, but the vast majority of sports that we associate with, in club sport in particular, has just a season, and then we go into that off-season. Advantages that we've got in sport is that freaky thing that our fans get. I joke a lot about in class, because I live in Parramatta, and the funny thing in Parramatta is every year, the first week of the rugby league competition, everyone's out wearing their Parramatta jersey. You know, it's all big hopes, and yes, this is going to be our year. And within 2 to 3 weeks each year, the Parramatta jerseys have disappeared because, well, Parramatta, apparently they cheated by spending too much money on players and they still come last. So they probably don't understand that true context. But each year the fans are still there. We talk about, or business will talk about brand loyalty, you know, your loyalty to your Weet-Bix or your Vegemite or Holden or Ford. But sport goes so far beyond that. The fans are always optimistic and they're unlikely to change. Whereas with some products, if you're not particularly happy with the product that you've been getting, you are likely to change. If all of a sudden it gets too expensive, then that's the way it is.
Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Was that someone?
No, sorry, that was just background.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So when we talked that sport is perishable, have you got that slide? Because mine's not moving at the moment.
Yeah.
Sport is perishable. So once you see the game's over. Similar to the context that if you go out and have a meal to eat, you eat your meal, then that meal's completed, it's gone, you move on to the next one. And that's what sport is. Whereas if you buy a car or a product, whether it be a technology type product, is you have it there and you'll continue to use it. Sport itself is perishable. Have we thought about, or are we aware how the sporting industry has tried to use technology to extend the life of an individual game? Anyone?
Yeah, of course. You've got the Twitter and all those sort of facilities that are able to keep you in contact with the progress of the sports organisation, where players are going in off-season and so forth.
Yeah. What about the actual games and sporting events?
Well, if you're not at the game, you can watch it by streaming it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, if you go onto, these days most clubs will have their own website, and you can go onto those sites and relive the best moments of season 2014, or go back in time and look at the great game that was in 1921, the last time Parramatta probably won anything. I'm actually not a Parramatta supporter. I don't actually watch rugby league, I prefer rugby union, but it's just fun to kick Parramatta because, well, they're an easy target. But this perishable component is also why it's a limited supply. We have 22 games. Now, if you think of any other industry, if you only have 20 such opportunities to sell your product, it's going to be hard for you to continually to generate an income. With sports management, they're looking at more ways to enhance it, to add to that supply, and that's where technology has really aided. The NBA and the EPL, or the basketball in America and the soccer in England, are prime examples. With technology available through the internet and web-based platforms, they're able to stream their games around the world. I think if you find, even in Australia, you've probably got more people tune in to watch the English Premier League than would watch the NRL or the AFL, and most definitely A-League soccer. So the audience and the opportunity to extend it. But then by offering the opportunity, log in, sign up, subscribe to us, and you can revisit training camps, training sessions, or past glories of your relative or your various clubs. Now, this emotions and passions. Okay, Emmanuel, were you the soccer man?
Was.
Were you the soccer
Yes.
soccer fan?
I am
Okay, do you have a particular team you follow?
Well, I just enjoy football generally, just like you with Union, but I guess Arsenal in the EPL.
Okay, so if the opportunity is for you to go back and watch their FA Cup final against Liverpool in 77 or something, you'd probably go, that's not a bad thing to do.
Definitely.
Well, what about you, Andrea?
Goosebumps looking at it.
What about you, Andrea? What's your sport of interest?
Athletics.
Athletics. Okay, so you obviously don't follow Australian sport, athletics, because we don't win anything in athletics, do we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Okay, we've got Sally Pearson, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else have we got?
Eleanor Patterson. We have high jumpers and stuff.
High jump. Yeah, okay, high jump.
Not as many as the US, though.
Sorry?
Not as many as the US, though.
Oh, no, but they're all drug cheats.
Yeah.
Haven't you seen the latest study last week that I think it was over 25 years, 33% of medals have been associated with athletes who have strange readings in their blood.
Yeah.
So Rio's going to be a disaster for athletics because they're going to hammer it with the anti-drug authorities around the world.
Yeah, won't be any athletes left.
No, so it'll be cycling and athletics that'll be banned from the Olympics. Okay. So how do you access athletics? Do you view other sporting events, or are you just worried about where you're centred? Andrea?
Oh, well, live streams are usually through Athletics Australia, but Facebook has a lot to do with it as well because there's like forums and stuff that put up like live news and whatever. I go and watch a lot of it, or I'm competing at it, but I don't really watch. I watch a bit of AFL because my boyfriend plays AFL, but I don't really watch NRL or anything.
That's right. NRL's dumb. So, did you say your boyfriend plays AFL?
Yeah, but he's a runner as well.
Oh, okay. Is he in one of the big AFL teams or just the local?
He was in the Swans Academy, but he qualified for World Juniors last year, so he had to give up that.
Give up one for the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you next see him, ask him that your lecturer wants to know why in AFL do they give you a point for missing?
I've asked the same question.
Just trying to work it out. All right, now, Rachel, what's your passion in sport?
Basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to tell on the camera, but you don't look particularly tall.
I'm like 6'2", so if you think that.
God. Really?
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I've been walking around Sydney Olympic Park this week, and we got the netballers. So there's all these. Yeah, I'm only 6 foot, but in Parramatta I'm quite tall.
Yeah.
And it's fun to walk around and see all these tall ladies walking around. I go, how cool is this?
Yeah.
Do you follow Australian basketball, or are you more in tune to watch the American basketball?
I follow both. I actually play for Australia, so I sort of follow it because I compete in it.
Yep.
But I follow the States. I also play over there, but when I'm not there, I follow the men's and the women's, and yeah, through live streaming and social media and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So now, can we see just how effective that web-based platforms are to extend the marketing prospects of the companies? Because that's really what we have to think of teams. We can't think of them as teams now, or even competitions. That we've got to think of them as a sporting company, and we need to generate income. Why do we need to generate income with sports? Anyone?
Keep them viable. I mean, if you've got no money coming in, you've got people who work within the industry. They need a wage, I guess.
Yeah, there is that, but there's also the development of the sport. Sport's only as good as its next lot of champions. If we don't have those champions or those players coming through, then the sport will drift off. If you take tennis, for example, Australia's success in tennis has been limited over the last decade, and there's less interest in young people in playing tennis than in previous generations. Some of that is the access these days, that the property value is such that instead of having a tennis court, it's worth more to put a house on it. So there's been that shrinking of the local tennis courts around. But primarily, as soon as we have someone successful, everyone wants to participate, as in everyone, as in the kids. Because what do kids look for?
Oh, you're going to get some loving in, aren't you?
There's what?
I think that was background noise.
Background noise, was it? Okay, fair enough. All right. But that's what we're looking at with, and part of your role in sports management is to do that. How can we extend that sport? How can we carry it on? How can we reach larger markets? Because the more markets and the opportunity is for you to actually generate a lot more income. Now we've got three sectors that come into sports management and sport in general. We've got the public, the not-for-profit, and the professional. Now when we talk about public, we have the three-sector model. To you, what's the public sector? What does that mean or refer to?
The government, does it?
Yeah, it's the government. Now, public, it's what the people own. The government uses funds that they recoup through the community, and it's our money that they're using, and so it's considered a public sector. Now, how does the government involve itself through this public sector? What have they put in place around the country, specifically in Australia, to aid and develop sport? Would you say things like the Australian Institute of Sport?
Yeah, development programs.
Okay, we've got the AIS down in Canberra, then we've got the Victorian Institute, Queensland Institute, and Swiss, WA, South Australia, even Tasmania's got one. I didn't realise they had any athletes apart from one cricketer and a car racer, but they even have an Institute of Sport down there. And that's a way the government can set up a facility to enhance and develop the top level of sport. But what's the problem when we talk about the top level of sport? This is where we were in the past with sport. If we only focus on developing the elite athlete, what do we forget about?
The up and coming.
Grassroots, yeah.
Yeah, the grassroots and the development, or the juniors and everyone else that plays. Because I guess you're probably looking at, less than 1% of people will go on to be a professional athlete. And our previous models in the past, such as the pyramid, where at the base it was always set to develop sport and to go with the person who was able to take the next step, whether it's starting at the local club and school system to going up into zone and regional teams to then go up into development squads, then into international and elite. But at each level, it was catered purely on the person who is advancing, and there was nothing in it for the person who did not make that next stage. So the government started looking to develop programs, not just with the Institutes of Sports, but also community-based programs. And do any come to mind there? National programs. We used to have it. For the girls, you're probably too young, but for Emmanuel, he's probably like me. He remembers the Life Be In It program. And
with Norm.
Yeah, Norm. The Norm and Shirl, I think it was, the aerobics instructor.
Mm-hmm.
But they spoke about, start looking how can we develop and provide facilities for the general population. So they've moved away from just catering for the elite, but also ensuring that at community, local, state and national levels there's sufficient interaction with the sport or with the public. And that's when we come into our non-profit sector, which is your community-based sports clubs. They're not about making money, they're not about making profit, they're about delivering sport to the wider community. And Rachel, you said you play basketball at a rather high level.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get into it as a young kid just playing around at school or at your local community or community club or local sport team?
Yeah, started playing at my local domestic club, which my mum actually started because we didn't have one near us. So, so I've sort of seen that not for profit, but now the club still exists and there's still kids that go through there. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's about creating opportunities for everyone to have a go. Because what's the best thing if everyone in the country participates in some form of sport? What are the wider advantages for society in general?
Lower medical costs.
Lower medical costs, yes. Well, that's it. And if we run more, then obviously the benefits of exercise will come into it. Problems with obesity can be possibly counteracted. But what's some things that you learn as a child that you can take on into society in general from sport?
Rules and regulations.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Discipline.
That's the first time kids learn that, you know what, if you do something wrong, then you get penalised for it. And that sort of sets them up for just basic social parameters in their life. So apart from the health benefits, it's also teaching people how to interact with each other. And that's why the government's got a big push into the non-profit sector. But could the non-profit sector survive without the government?
No, because it
Probably
needs
not.
the facilities. That's one thing, and it needs facilities.
Yeah.
Yields
It does.
upgrade.
And in particular, we talk about funding. Where are we going to get the money for to fix up our cricket ground or our local park or football? But what's the difference with the non-profit sector and, say, a professional sporting team?
Rely on volunteers.
Yeah. The non-profit sector survival is based on how many people volunteer. And there's a lot of talk at the moment in the general media about how volunteers in local sports are getting harder and harder to find, and it's really having a real impact. They're the backbone of a lot of the community clubs, the sporting clubs, from the person who runs the canteen to the person who sets up the ground each week for the various teams. And when we're managing, and we're a sports management, we're going to have to deal with that. And how do you interact and keep volunteers involved in your club? Have any of you been involved with trying to generate or work with volunteers for the local comp? No, definitely silence. Well, get on to it, guys. Get on to it.
Most of your coaches are volunteers.
Most of you, coaches, very few. Even in, I worked a lot with Shoot Shield Rugby. If you're in New South Wales and you know anything about rugby, which is probably about 10 people in Australia, that even at Shoot Shield level, which in theory is one level below Super Rugby, apart from players getting match payments and their head coach, just about everyone else is a volunteer. And that is, in theory, one step off full-time professional. So that's how far up volunteers go with our sport. Now, how do we interact with those people? How can we generate their interest in volunteering in the sport? Because remember, volunteering is about giving up your time for no financial benefit. Anyone? Do you like to make them feel part of the club, part of the environment?
Personal satisfaction.
Yeah, personal satisfaction, that their effort is valued by the greater good of the club. And it's about how do we interact and keep that going. And with sports management, sports administration, that also falls in your basket. You're responsible to keep that engagement. So you've got about 1,000 different arms that you have to be able to apply, and managing of people. It's easy when the person's paid. You're paid to do this. You're paid to deliver this. So how about you do that? Yet on the other hand, when you've got people who aren't being paid, how we sit there and generate and keep them involved and interested in it. Now, with funding, let's see if I can stop sharing this and it'll clear. Probably isn't. If I lose you all, don't worry, we'll come back. Oh, there we go. Hang on, it's happening. Oh, someone else has joined us. Who's that? Lorraine, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. Just quickly, I'll go back to the first thing. Lorraine, how are you going with that group task?
Yeah, I've finished my part of it. I've emailed it through to Rachel today.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So you got enough contact with your group members?
Yeah, Rachel and I have been talking. The other person I only heard from last night.
Okay. This is awesome, this group tasks online. I know I found out the other day that one person's actually just moved to England, so that should be pretty easy for you to organise a group assignment with that. With a lot of things, and we talk about the link, and now we're going to go into professional sport. And we all think professional sport, we just heard the NRL, $900 million from free to air. They're hoping to generate another $800 million from pay TV, whether they'll get that total. That's a lot of money to watch rugby league. And that fund is going to go into the development of rugby league, the payment of the players, and you assume the facilities. Do governments help these large professional organisations, because that's what a sporting team is, with the development and enhancement of their facilities? Do we know? Do we think?
Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
But should they?
They should, because they'll get something in return indirectly.
Okay.
Yeah. I know here, here in Melbourne, Collingwood have got a huge grant to upgrade their facilities, but they've also included like a community centre, and they're going to have like engagement with the community through that. So I think obviously they've done that so they could get more money from the government, but I think when the clubs try and give back to the community, that's why the government's going to get involved.
Yeah. Okay. What about when people will argue, the government's put forward, it's going to give a few $1 million for a club, but then you hear that they're cutting funding in hospitals, or they're cutting funding in educational programs. Where do we reach that dilemma? Because quite often when we're in sport, we only discuss and talk about the impact it has on sport with the others in the sporting community. So we have that as a outstanding need, that we see the benefit of it towards the sport and to the greater community. But when we look at the greater community and all they know is that waiting lists in hospitals are increasing, meanwhile a professional organisation is getting taxpayers' money to help build their stand or their grandstand or their team. So do you think there is a balance there? What do you think that sort of side from the general community comes?
I think that there's a lot of sports that do have the government funding, and there's a lot more money in some sports than others. So I don't think that there's a balance between the sports and the funding, because I know that there's not a lot of funding for runners or athletics in general. And people struggle to get funding to go and compete in places and whatever. Although you hear stuff about the football leagues over in England and how much money all their players get and how much money all the AFL players get, but then there isn't the funding for the hospitals. So I think that there kind of needs to be the balance in between, so that everyone kind of gets what they want.
Yeah. I think it's funny that if you look at our most successful sporting teams over the last 20 to 30 years, and our most successful athletes in the vast range of sports, generally it's female teams and female athletes, isn't it?
Yep.
Yet if you have a look at our female netball team, although they lost against New Zealand on the weekend, our female netball team, our female field hockey team, our female swimmers are generally more successful than the male counterparts. And yet, like I know the female hockey players all have to have a job. And yet they've been more successful than the rugby league players. They've been more successful than the rugby union, more successful than the cricket team. So why do you think there's that disparaging funding along there? Because as Andrea said, the sports that are successful, they generate more funding. Whereas, so if that was to be the case, why is it that successful teams don't get the funding?
They're not made out to be as marketable.
Yeah, I think, well, I know personally, before the London Olympics, us girls found out that the boys were getting business class flights everywhere, and we're the ones that have won all the medals at all the Olympics. The boys have never medaled, so they were getting the majority of the funding that we bring in. So I think it is like it's our Basketball Australia just sort of went that way and gave them the funding, which they've fixed now. But also on the way back from the Olympics, it goes, you sit on the plane according to what medal you won. So the boys got economy on the way back and we got business class.
That's all right. I guess economy must really suck if you're a basketballer.
Yeah.
I'm 6 foot, and economy is not pleasant when I'm 6 foot. So I can imagine your basketballers, and that just how much leg room's back there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Well, I've got. I'll apologise now if you don't like swearing. So mainly because I've got a video, and I'm going to try this, and it's an American-based video commentary on stadiums and their basketball teams and football teams and how sporting teams and how much money they have still generate a vast amount of government funding. So it's here we go. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Is that coming up?
No.
See that, guys?
I can't see it.
Yes, no?
No.
No.
It's just black.
Can you hear it?
It nearly came on.
Oh, I can hear the beeping.
Yeah.
You can hear the swearing being blacked out, can you?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Oh, it's really faint.
Very, very unclear.
Okay, I'll close out of that. If you go on to Study Smart, there's a commentary or a form being put up, and it's got a link to that video. And it goes into just that, how much money that sports or sporting teams in America get from the government to build their stadiums. And one in particular was that, and if they don't get their stadiums, teams threaten to leave and move to other cities. And yet, despite all this money, and we spoke about it before, that you mentioned the Collingwood, and they put in a community centre to aid that. In America, they don't even worry with that. They just put in their stadium, or we will leave your city. And in some cases, people would sit there and go, there'd be a revenue sharing. In the American situation, that they talk about how much money these teams are worth, how much money they generate from their stadiums, but there's no sharing of that money. It is purely going back to the teams. And that's where a lot of the questions have come up. There's been one just recently, I believe it was West Ham in England, that the council just gave them a stadium, and it was worth hundreds of millions of dollars through property tax and that. And then they received it for nothing. And so there's all outcry over how can a team that's valued at so many hundreds of millions be receiving that? Why is it that they get that sort of money? So have a look, and that comment just requires you to specifically just put your opinion in it. It can be pro, it can be con. And so what we're hoping is because although the online have been quite good at the forum, the face-to-face have been less inclined to enter the forum. So we just want to get people more interactive into the forum. And I've just received an email, and I think one of our students is having trouble. Oh, okay, he's just telling me why he couldn't make it. That's all right. That was Michael, if he's one of your guys. Okay. Now, next week, or the next tube we're looking at is we're going specifically into the state role and the state's involvement in sport, and looking at the sort of things that, why the government's interested, why the government finds it important, the beneficial effects, and when they should actually intervene. Now, in that context, do you know when governments actually intervene in sports? Not necessarily responding to something, but in advance, how they've intervened in the past. Are there any particular things that come to note to you that has involved government intervention?
Anti-doping.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one, is the anti-doping.
Essendon.
Essendon. I thought they got exonerated, didn't they?
Apparently.
Apparently, yeah. Well, that was, again, I'm going to have another kick in the guts at Parramatta. In the rugby league, that Parramatta actually, Asada went and had a look at Parramatta and then recommended that Parramatta take their drug supplier to the ACCC, because he obviously sold them a dodgy product because they kept coming last. So, you know, fraudulent claim. So, but yeah, so drugs is probably the biggest one. And why are we so anti-drugs in performance?
Because they want it to be on an even playing field.
Yes, but, and this is what quite often it is, a lot of people go, oh, drugs are banned because they aid in performance. But if everyone was allowed to use them, then isn't it a level playing field? So why does the government ban the enhancement drugs? What do we think?
There's health risks that go along with taking them. Yeah.
That's it, Rachel. It's the health risk. If we found a product that enhanced physical performance but enhanced health, had no consequences or side effects, then we probably wouldn't ban it just because it made athletes actually perform better. I think the most known supplement that's used for performance is creatine monohydrate. That's not banned. Whether it's that effective remains to be debated, but we need to look at that. So it's looking at the health risk and the health components of it. And why do you think we need to protect athletes from that? We've got a couple of athletes here. Why should we make sure you understand that you're not allowed to take those drugs, Rachel?
Well, I don't know. I think, we get educated from a very young age, so I think, like, the older you get, there's obviously more pressures to perform and things like that. So I guess it's just always ingrained to sort of check your substances and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you aware that probably about 10 years ago, they, just as a study, they ran it was at a World Athletics Championships, and they just had a simple survey question, an anonymous survey, to all the athletes, and it was purely to get the psychological profiles or the concepts of thought of athletes. And it was a simple process, and all they did was ask these athletes, goes, we've got this new supplement out. There's a few things we can guarantee you. The first thing we can guarantee you is that it will never be tested. It will never be identified in any test. It will go through completely undetected. The second point that they could guarantee was if you took that, you would definitely win a gold medal. Then on that, they said, the other thing that we can guarantee you is that you'll be dead within 5 to 10 years. Would you take this drug? What do you think the response was? Anyone?
They take it.
83% of athletes responded they would take it. And so there is that component that sometimes people cannot see beyond the immediate success. And as anyone who's trained a lot, you put everything into it. And if you know everyone else is going to it, Darren Clark comes to mind. He was a 400-metre runner back in the 80s. And he came fourth in the 400-metre final in Seoul, I believe, in 88. 3 months after the Olympics, the runner that came third and won the bronze medal had a positive drug test, at which time he gave up because he said, what's the point? I've got a drug cheat that actually got the drug, won the medal, and stopped me winning a medal. So that's why we have these testings, and that's why it is, because the health benefits or the health risk is quite devastating. There's a lot of people out there who are athletes who have died quite early, although they've never tested positive. But the the general assessment is they were obviously on something. Here we go. Andrea, what athlete, female athlete, has that question about whether or not she was ever on drugs and died quite young? Flojo. Yeah. So, faster than Jessie Owens. She was about 38 or 39 and died in the sleep or at night. So that's why we need it, and that's why the government has intervened. Do we know other interventions that governments come into in controlling sport, say with rules and regulations?
Horse racing.
Horse racing, yes. Is there another animal that's been in the public at the moment?
Greyhounds. Dish lickers.
Yeah. All of a sudden we're doping and drugging our horses and dogs, aren't we? Or getting them to chase live animals. Is that was the greyhound one, wasn't it? Live bait?
Yeah.
The rabbit?
Yeah.
And now we're using a supplement in horse racing. So again, but does it really matter what happens to an animal?
Yeah.
There's a couple of myths, and there was one. I don't know what it says when a dentist goes, nah, not really. But yeah, because it's all this concept of the sports are worth a lot of money, but with that comes a responsibility, and you've got to reach a social standard, don't you? The community expects a certain behaviour, and so the government has to control that, because if they don't have the controls in place, it becomes, can we get this horse to run faster? Can we get this dog to run better? Doesn't matter how we do it, let's just do it. So the society and the basic community says that, goes, no, if we're going to use these animals, we need to control it and make sure they're dealt with properly. So, and that's one. Now, do you know of what about our combat sports? What are some of the regulations that come in there? Do you understand what I mean by a combat sport?
Boxing.
Yeah, so boxing.
As in weight divisions, you mean? Or?
Oh, well, I'm not sure if it may have just changed, but I know a number of states don't allow female professional boxing.
Why is that?
Sorry?
Why is that?
Oh, because girls aren't supposed to fight. They're supposed to look prim and proper. Isn't that the antiquated approach to females in sport? Oh, no, you just carry our towels, please. But no, it's all right for guys to beat the snot out of each other and destroy their brain cells, but females, we don't want to do that. I'm not sure if it's just changed, and I know some of the states have different regulations about it. But I know they used to get a female boxer on the rugby league footy show, and she was having trouble. She couldn't fight in New South Wales. She had to travel to other states to fight because of legislative requirements on boxing. But with that, we've also got controls over, you've got to get a license to box, don't you? Again, because, and to get that, it's not based on your ability to punch. That's solved very quickly. But it's you've got to get a medical clearance to fight. Why do we think that is?
The brain and the brain injuries, and also if there's going to be blood, you know, you can't have, you know, AIDS or whatever.
Yeah, you know, no, if we're going to beat you to death, that's okay, but we don't want to damage your brain until that point. But that's now extended further into it, hasn't it? Because on the football base, I know it's big in NRL, in rugby league and rugby union, probably with AFL, I'm not too sure, but they've now instituted concussion guidelines, and that's come from the Australian Sports Commission, and it's filtered down into the Australian sporting organisations, because there is a major issue with it. And I guess the one thing is, it's not going to look good on a sporting field to have an athlete drop dead and die because of a brain injury. So they've now instigated and intervened with, they're bringing in laws and regulations in. If you suffer a head knock, hey, you know, we've got to work out when it's safe for you to go back on. What other matters come in regards to sport, though, and government intervention, do you think?
Betting.
Betting? Yeah. Why can't an athlete bet on a game they're involved in?
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, compromises the integrity.
Compromises the integrity, yes, but yeah, okay. I like throwing a red herring, but when you've got a game of 11 people, how can you control what everyone does if only one person's rigged? But the most publicised one internationally would be cricket. There's been quite a few instances of what they call their exotic bets or their spot betting, where you can have, I want you to bowl a no ball on the 4th ball of the 10th over, and they had one of the young, I'm not sure if it was Pakistani or Indian bowlers, and they said it was the worst no ball ever bowled in history. He overstepped the mark by almost a metre. Have there been some other world-known incidences of betting on sporting fixtures?
FIFA.
That's not betting on features. That's just paying off to get the game, isn't it? But yeah, FIFA and how everyone takes money, but just to market the program in their respective countries. But now there's questions you can also ask the IOC with that. How does China, with its human rights record, get to host the Beijing Olympics in 2008? And along those lines. But then some people would say, but by opening them up internationally, then it's going to draw the attention to their country, and wider attention will help them realise that they now have to actually come into line with best practices in dealing with your own population, I guess we could say it. But these are the sorts of things that sort of come into why the government must intervene and why it does intervene. So we've got control and regulation of the sports, maintaining everything's above and beyond honesty, and just the health of the participants and the fans. We're going to do in this one, we've got your major essay is on the Hillsborough disaster, I guess they call it, which was the crowd crush in 1989 at a Liverpool FA soccer game. And it's looking at the sort of things that went wrong with the overall control of the game. And that's going to have a greater impact because that directly relates to you could be the event manager at an event like that, and how breakdown in certain patterns led to the problem that did become the death of 96 people. So jump onto the forum, have a look at that, the John Oliver. I apologise again if he doesn't mind swearing, John Oliver. He's quite a funny guy. He has a quite unique approach, and I think it's funny that an Englishman's on American TV criticising American sport and American policies. But he doesn't sit just to sport, he goes right off on the various of others. But this one's a particular comment about Olympic or sporting stadiums and the football teams. And you tell your other roommates, Rachel, to stop distracting you.
Sorry.
You tell them I'll send them a 50,000 word essay they have to write on why I should not annoy my roommates.
You probably get a few choice swear words back if you did.
Oh, that's all right. I spent 12 years around the rugby field as an S&C, so I'm used to being sworn at. So that's fine. All right, guys, do we have any questions? Do you guys have any questions or concerns or anything about how the course is going so far, or anything you're not quite sure about just yet?
The only thing I wanted to ask you is the Turnitin aspect. What do you actually do? Do you just send in your PowerPoint?
Yeah. At this stage, like, the PowerPoint isn't actually part of the assessment. We want you to put it in Turnitin because you'll get a draft report, and what it will do is highlight where the question of academic honesty is highlighted, so that when you start handing in your essays for task 2 and task 3, that you've had exposure. And then what we'll be doing during the next couple of weeks is going over and pointing out this is how it was presented, because generally I find it's more a case that most students, when they first go into academia, have trouble understanding what we mean by paraphrasing. That a lot of them think, okay, I have to reference, so they copy it out or cut and paste, but reference it, change it slightly, but then it's still brought in the question about academic honesty. So submit it to Turnitin, and if you follow the prompts, you go Turnitin, upload file, run, and it'll print out a report, and it'll just highlight areas where there's too much resemblance to actually probably the document you got it from. Okay? And in this case, it is purely so you can be exposed to Turnitin before it becomes an accessible part of your assignment. And we'll go over and we'll go, okay, look, Andrea put this comment in, it's come up and it's all red. What a better way for her to have dealt with that is, instead of putting it in like this, is to rewrite it in this way. And so we're going to bring it in as a teaching tool.
Will you see our presentations?
Yeah, because I'll download the presentations as well, your PowerPoints. Like I said, with your actual presentation, and Rachel, keep your roommates out of it, with your actual video of your presentation, all I want to see is you actually talking and giving your oral presentation. The slides is, again, teaching you about getting comfortable using PowerPoint if you haven't had much exposure, and as a learning tool to develop paraphrasing ability when it comes to things such as Turnitin. Okay? So is that all clear as mud?
I have one more question. When we're referencing, because we're only using that article, and there's little references in amongst it, do we have to find the source?
In this instance, I'll say no. You don't have to go and find the primary source. With APA, generally, it would have, I'm trying to think, don't quote me on this, it's got Smith and Jones as presented in Jones and Smith. So there's a way to reference from a reference within a text. But I'm more than happy for you if there's if something in it that they reference that Thompson and Jones reported this, then I'm happy for you to take that section and actually just cite or reference it to Thompson and Jones without going through as cited in Smith and Jones. Because again, it's more about, because have the guys here, have you had much exposure to referencing?
No.
No. So
long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Look, referencing is the bane of every student who's ever undertaken university studies of any sort. I remember first year it took me longer to write out a reference list than it did to write the whole lit review. And you're sitting there going, dot, comma, dot, semicolon, space, no space. Oh no, I've got the wrong word capitalized. I lose all my marks. So what we're setting this up is to get you guys back in the habit or introduce you into referencing the first time, so that it's sort of like practice before you actually have to do it. Because on task 2 and task 3, your referencing is an assessment criteria, and we will base your marking on your referencing ability, so to speak. Not the whole mark, but there is a certain component. And as I've explained to other students, that if you make one mistake and repeat that one mistake throughout your whole essay, I'm not going to go, well, you've done that mistake 32 times. that's it. You fail because you don't do referencing. It's one mistake. Okay. So I'm not going to come down on you because I hate referencing myself. I had to reference, I've got about 500-600 references in my thesis. And that's in the reference list, so you can imagine how many times you've had to go through. But thankfully, I get to use a computer software program that does it for me now. You guys don't. Unless you know how to use it, and I can't tell if you've used EndNote or not. Okay, but just think of it, practice it to get in the habit of doing it, because with most of your subjects, there are going to be a lot of referencing requirements throughout the next couple of years with the degree. And so this, as a foundation course, is not just teaching you the subject, but helping you develop those skills that you require. Okay?
Okay.
And with your PowerPoint, as you said, if you are just referencing the same article the entire way through the PowerPoint, that's fine. I don't expect to see anything else other than that. Okay? So just get it, it's more, as I said, to get it in your head, the process of referencing. Okay?
Okay.
Any other questions, guys?
No. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming in today. Send me an email if you've got any issues, any problems, and I will get back to you. Have my responses been quick enough?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, guys. We're also probably going to send out to you a survey in the next week or two. We just want to see what we can do for the online module to make it easier for you and better, what you're liking, what you're not liking, what you think would help you, okay? So just look out for that when it comes through. Okay, guys?
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks for
We'll
that.
see you next week, guys. Be in touch.
Bye.
Thanks.